Hello. Hi, everybody. Back again for episode 2 of our Digital Taunton podcast. I'm Shane Griffiths.
I'm Jeremy Holmes.
And today we are going to be talking to an entrepreneur, Paul Stephenson, from CEO of EgoStream, and lots of other things, I think. But before we do that, just any news, any updates? What have you been up to? Keeping busy?
No, I had nothing
It's
to do.
been a busy week, actually, for me as well.
Yeah.
But it's always nice to find the time to do this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, from a business perspective, it's been fantastic in terms of, as we've mentioned before, the pandemic creates challenges on one side, but phenomenal opportunities in others. And hopefully we're going to explore a little bit more with that with Paul.
Yeah. So, Paul, lovely to meet you. Thank you ever so much for giving up your time on a Friday. And yeah, it's great to... it was interesting that you were one of the people that we've spoken to like months ago, right? About actually coming to Taunton and being part of our physical events. And it's taken us this long to kind of get together.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, no problem. And great to hook up with you. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Paul, I mean, in Digital Taunton, we our thing is obviously entrepreneurship. It's all things digital. And it feels like you tick both of those boxes, and it'd be great just to uncover a few of the things that you've been up to. I can see you've been around running your own business for 30 years. You help technology companies. You look like you are involved in coaching, but I might have that wrong. And certainly the thing that Shane and I will definitely be picking your brain about is your podcasting. Since we're only at number 2, we'll be taking some notes. So, it'd be great if you could just introduce what you're doing.
Yeah, sure thing. So, thank you very much for that. And it's a pleasure to be a guest today on pod number 2. In essence, I have been working predominantly in the technology industry for just shy of 30 years. My first 10 years were really as a headhunter, running my own executive search practice, bringing tech companies in from the US into the UK European market. Particularly, it was in the roaring 90s. So a lot of household names. So I was helping them from a strategic perspective implement scale in the European market, which meant people. So in essence, just for what it's worth for your viewers today and listeners, I'm a people-to-people person. I've been in the people business, and it just so happens that I've run a very successful executive search company. And over the last sort of 15 years specifically, I've been working at really helping distressed, flatlining and high growth tech companies throughout the evolutionary stages of growth. So you were right to say that the essence of how I do that is from a coaching point of view, but operating at strategic level, but then getting involved with operations and then getting involved with developing skills. And I'd coin that as I absorb the ambition of a business, I assess the ambition against the ability, and then I put all the mechanism in place to make it happen. So latterly, over the last 5 years, I've been heavily involved with M&A, getting companies strong for exit. I'm steeped in tech and I'm steeped in people, and I've worked with quite a number of interesting businesses and had some successes, and it's all been very, very interesting times.
So have you, with the businesses you've been dealing with over the years then, these tech companies, is there a common denominator, a common area where you see, because you say you've deal with both companies that are flatlined and companies that have scaled enormously. From a flatlining perspective, is there a common theme, a common reason as to why these businesses, is there a certain level of turnover?
So if we look at the last 5 years specifically, where was it the last 10, where you're getting involved with an organization that is shifting direction, and they may be moving from being a hardware company, as an example, about 10 years ago, where they're moving to software, then to professional services. They often sometimes don't make the decisions at the right point and actually run out of steam. So, for example, the classic situation would be, our technology is fantastic, we pioneer it, we have it adopted in our market, and then we hit the cash cow curve, and then we fail to actually have R&D kick in at the appropriate time to keep the continuity of our products live within our market, which means that they tend to sort of lose the momentum. So R&D sometimes has a bit of a problem or an issue around that. Alternatively, energy issues, i.e. literally the energy of the company from a performance point of view. Performance in salespeople is sometimes a very common issue, such as bad hiring. They haven't executed to plan and they've hit a flat line. Many things. But I think if I look at the essence of the pattern, I think the question's a good one, because I think they just sometimes don't, leadership particularly, don't make decisions in anticipation. They know what to do, they just don't fail to make the decision. So if they see a problem coming, they tend to sort of try and avoid it as opposed to getting stuck into it to fix it, as just a base example. But, there are many factors why a flatlining company sort of arrives, or, sometimes there's also the businesses, kind of run out of steam within its market sector, and it's got old tech and it doesn't really serve the need of the customer like it used to. Alternative to that, you've got highly comparable technology. So if you think about it right now, our market is saturated technically. Yeah. So, 15, 20 years ago, you weren't compared as much as you are now. So the whole buying dynamics changed, and there's more solutions in the market to fix the problem. Whereas once upon a time, you were kind of, you knew who you were up against, if that makes sense. Now, there are so many different ways of purchasing technology to solve a particular problem. Yeah.
Do you also think, it's an area that really interests me, that the customer, whoever that customer is, they've changed, right? Over the last 20 years, they've gone from being a kind of faceless, nobody really, doesn't really matter if you offer poor service, because the only person that's ever going to hear about that is their neighbor or the guys they drink down in the pub. But now you offer poor service to a customer, no matter what you're selling. You could be trending on Twitter. You could be having lots of hits on YouTube. So the power's gone to the customer. And
they reckon it like, they reckon now like a bad experience can, if one person has a bad experience, that can be passed on to like 100 people. Yeah. And that's someone that isn't perhaps a social media influencer, but just someone, regular person on social media has the ability, if my mum had a bad service with British Gas or whoever, she had, it's like around 100 people that she could influence without
not that she's had a bad service
not
with
at all.
British Gas
or any gas company for that matter.
But yeah, so do you see the I suppose the question is do you see the empowerment of the customer and their what their expectations are as a driving trend towards
it's a good point. I think
and
buyers,
failure?
particularly in the tech industry now, we're not in a sales environment anymore. We're actually in a buying environment. So if you think about the power of the buyer, if they're a savvy buyer, 9 times out of 10 have done their research technically and commercially on who you are, what you are. And I'll come on to something else in a second, which is important, the power of brand. I think you'd be quite surprised at the word brand, and we'll come back to that in a second. But the buying environment, I'm not the first to say it, but today we're more advisors technically than we are trying to sell something. And I develop and have developed literally dozens of sales teams, sales individuals, developed sales directors, and kind of led, I have a concept called 12 quarters to exit, which you know about. And one of the precursors to that is understanding your customer. But fundamentally, it's not a selling situation. It's actually an advisory situation. And if you're technically, prevalent within your market, you understand your customer, you've earned your place in that environment. And now it's about guiding them to make a wise decision. If you're having to sell, you're fundamentally having to convince. And if you're having to convince, there's a trust issue. So from my point of view, is it comes down to the market's saturated, you're in a highly comparable market, and unless you are, and I'll go one step further, a domain expert, and you really are on point with your proposition, and you can actually navigate yourself into a buying environment and gain the trust very, very quickly in the process, then I wouldn't say it's a walk in the park, but it's a lot easier. So in essence, the evolution of doing business has changed and is changing, and actually is about to change again with clearly how we're having to communicate.
Yeah, very much so.
So if you think about it like this, if you were buyers and I was the seller in that character shape, in reality, you don't want to buy from somebody that is uninformed. So I would need to be a domain expert. Like you're a smart buyer. However, there is a caveat here, because you often get what I would call naive buyers in a position where they don't truly understand what they're buying into. And I think there goes once again, the advisor. So we all talk about trusted advisor, but really what I'm trying to say is the buying dynamic is definitely changed and changing. So a little example of that right now is we're not B2B or B2C anymore. In this environment, we're P2P, right?
P2P.
So
that's a new one.
It's person to person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll come on to brand just to articulate the point.
I don't want to stop you mid-flow, but P2P. I love. I'm having that.
Yeah,
definitely.
that sounds good.
I've not heard of that. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
Well, it's interesting because I have a sister company called Zengility.life, which is all about people setting up lifestyle businesses and fundamentally domain experts branding themselves as domain experts to actually trade in the new economy, which is actually coming throughout this pandemic scenario, whatever you want to call it. And by the way, the new word from me is there isn't a pandemic, there isn't COVID-19, we've just all been taken psychologically hostage. And we need to start to think through that one pretty quick. So we're pretty on to
bring that to life. Bring that to life. Are you saying? I'm not sure what you're saying. So maybe I've interpreted that as this is just another problem business has to face and a hurdle that we need to work out how to outmaneuver. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, we need to certainly navigate through it and then outmaneuver. And I think a good indicator, it's obviously over the last 6 months. And I mean, it's genuinely coming up that long, isn't it? We've had to pivot quite quickly to be operating through the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but I was talking to the head of Credit Suisse Bank the other day, and it was just a head on a screen. It wasn't the corporate office. It wasn't all the aesthetics of, marble tables and fantastic crockery and super coffee. It was just two guys having a real healthy conversation.
But no, I'm there. However, it is now about the microphone.
It's about the mic and the camera.
It is about the mic.
And the backdrop, because when you're having these calls with people now, there's like this whole sort of subculture of exploring what your colleagues' houses look like behind the scenes.
Well, it's not just that. I get bookshelf envy.
Oh yeah, we could do with a bookshelf here actually. I reckon we need to get a little digital talking
podcast.
Well, you could do a lot with that little bit of artwork behind you there, and that wall. You could have something that.
So funny you should say that. We've just ordered.
It's so exciting. We're going proper neon sign.
Yeah, I'm not even going to say what it costs, but with our colours. Unfortunately, it takes about 8 years to get here or something.
Yeah, it's in process.
We would give
So you're going
the.
to look like something from retro, this real retro sort of neon thing up in the background.
I was going to say I'd give the company a plug, but they didn't give us any discount.
No discount whatsoever. I reckon they've charged us more, to be honest. But no, we're actually,
Sorry.
But it's important though. This is like the new thing that matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. We've swapped the marble tables, the big boardrooms for that backdrop, for the quality of the camera and the quality of the microphone. And also,
it's a good point. So I sort of Zengility.life is all about branding.
Yeah, because you mentioned that about before branding.
We trade sorry, we brand individuals to be trading assets within their domain. And, you know, my business partner, Ben Rayner, and I, he's got a branding background, and I've got a transformational background, you know, from developing people and growing companies. And there's a great marriage there. But your points are well made about the sort of the aesthetics of your brand and things. And it was interesting because I did a video earlier this week, and the first thing somebody commented on was my shirt. It happened to be a good shirt, to be candid. But here we are, you know, it's sort of like, be careful what you're wearing, be careful what you're saying, be careful how you look. You know, is this where it's going? Anyway,
you're right, though. Brand is everything, right? Your personal brand can be just as powerful as your business or the business that you're a part of brand.
But that's really interesting. You talk about personal brand, right? So, Paul, the question I want to ask you, obviously a brand expert, do you think, and a founder as well, do you think that a brand can be created or is part of the founder, so that bleeds into the business?
I think that I set up a podcast recently called Silent Ego, and silentego.com, silentego.co.uk. I can't remember which one it is now, but you'll get this. And it was the strapline was the soul of business.
Yes.
And that's aimed at leaders and entrepreneurs who fundamentally are the soul of the business. So the answer to the question is, from an authentic perspective, and by the way, the substrap line was life beyond the spreadsheet. I
definitely want to ask you about that in a minute.
So it's the person. So, you know, we've all been caught up for the last God knows how many years in the capitalistic values of business.
Yeah.
And as we see the death of capitalism as we knew it, and we see the rise of the new, what I coined the phrase life capitalism, life first, money second, you know, you're going to see the rise of new leadership. And not to say it doesn't exist right now, but the point of the matter is the brand of the business, without question, is the individual, i.e. the man, the number one man. And the essence of that authenticity ripples across the whole team.
So that very much becomes part of the brand of the business.
Absolutely. And I think that it has to be, in today's terms, and this is our personal view, it's got to be an authentic perception.
Yeah.
It can't be, you know, fudged, because you can't lead like that.
And is that
times are done.
Is that down again to what I like to term the modern day customer? Because the modern day customer, the you know, is absolutely savvy to what is authentic and what isn't, and they buy authenticity. And they spot fake a mile away.
I think so, and it's quite interesting how we're, you know, it's a good point, and I think it comes back to the specialist, niche specialists, domain experts, fixing complex problems, i.e. the buyer, and advising and guiding. And I think this is the whole evolutionary shaping that's taking place right now, and we're kind of channeling this through the, you know, I classify it as the glass room. It's the whole different kind of dynamic of human psychology that's kicking in. And also the other dynamic I'll just share is we're in a home environment, right?
True, yeah.
So also remember that home is where the heart is. So therefore, you know, you're going to get a slightly different version of the person somewhere on the journey. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that people that work in the office environment, i.e. the corporate environment, and the home environment have they have a different mindset. And obviously the corporate environment, you've got like what I would call a high ego, do you realize who I am sort of temperament. But in the home environment, you're just a little bit more authentic. And I think you become a little bit more conscious about who you are communicating with, right? So you spot things that you normally wouldn't spot, right? So if we think about the buying environment, your points are well made, because you've got to be a little bit more, you have to be authentic. You've got to be perceived as a domain expert, because he's looking or she's looking for guidance. And if you can't offer that in the way that they want it, you'll be what I would call forgettable. So my ethos with my business practice is, at every level, is be remarkable, be unforgettable, yeah? and you've got one shot. And it's a bit like
cool.
a bit like you guys, right? It's you've got a movie set there.
It's actually not far off it.
It's quite remarkable, you know. You've gone down to the detail of creating this, you know, authentic perception. You're pretty serious about it. You know, that bit of kit's not cheap.
Yeah, no, it's not. Our wives have both been wondering where all these kind of receipts and invoices are coming from. Yeah, we have been buying a lot of toys, and actually, you know, it's almost COVID has caused me to actually develop a new passion, and which is this kind of thing. And yeah, it's really interesting, really good fun actually, and it's just good messing around.
Which brings me on. I'm sorry, guys. I know it's showtime between us, but it brings me on to this thing that I've just been talking about today. To a health guru that I've been talking to, who does gut health. He's all about gut health. And
funny you should say that. Shane's a little bit of an expert as of last week on this, so I'm really interested in what you're going to say.
So so I am currently like in day 5. My wife is going to really chuckle at this. So my wife has been reading and watching and listening to various articles about the microbiome, is it? Gut health. Yeah. And she has been really absorbing loads of information, and what she does, I have to follow because she cooks the meals in the house. And so I'm on day 5 of a gut microbiome reset without any carbs, and I've been taking various different.
You should have seen the way he was
vitamins.
looking at me as I was eating my sandwich this afternoon. Envious.
So I haven't had a carbonated drink or any carbs in 5 days, and it's all about this gut health stuff. So I thought genuinely it was all nonsense, but if you've been learning about it as well, then maybe there is something in it.
Tell us more.
Well, it's an important point. I mean, I think that first, congratulations for persevering the rehab you're going in.
I'll be going to bed after this. It's about as much energy as I can muster.
Yeah, no, well, it's a good thing. The long-term benefits should be excellent, but I think it's sort of you know, I know we're picking on things here, but I think it also comes across in. You know, you talk about impact and energy and being remarkable. And I think that these are the things that people do pick up. And I'll be absolutely brutally honest with you. I can actually, when I'm engaging with somebody now through the glassroom, I can assess quite quickly, you know, their health. You know, I know it sounds bizarre, but there is that, isn't there? You can say, hey, you know, he's kind of a little bit out of shape. And what is that saying to me, you know? And, you know, I'm not saying we're going down this sort of Bill Gates sort of precision living world. I'm not sure. But we'll not go down that rabbit hole for too long. But everything's getting measured, right?
Right, it really is, yeah.
If you look at the investment in technology that's coming, you know, it's all, you know, eye sensing. It's, what's the term? Micro, I can't remember now off the top of my head. It's been a long week, but bottom line is everything's getting sensed, everything's getting measured. You know, it's all about data, artificial intelligence. You know, it's an interesting subject. But anyway, coming back to gut health, I think that, I mean, you are, in many ways, if you think about it, you've got your mind, you've got your heart, and you've got your gut. And I think that, you know, clearly, Shane, you're in amongst this right now.
Very much so.
But equally, so what are we really trying to say is we're becoming more sensitive, and the gut is a good form of intelligence when it's switched on, literally, you know. So, you know, coming back to one of the original questions about is there any patterns in what you identify in tech companies? Well, do you know what? There's a lot of gut feeling in there. Just how people show up, you know, the common pattern. And this is beyond the spreadsheet. This is more about just the energy in the room, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell quite quickly whether a business is performing or not by the energy in the room. And I'll just share something with you right now, which actually is not an accurate comparable, but it's not a bad one. Did you know that one of the founders, the original guys at Marks and Spencer's, used to measure his business through, on a Saturday, taking him and his PA or secretary in them days to one of the stores and stand outside the door and listen to the tills going in and out. You know, the old-fashioned till?
Yeah.
And he could tell and predict the profitability of that store through that noise. Right?
That ringing checkout sound.
That wasn't a computer. That was
old-fashioned machine learning, right?
Exactly. Anyway, I go off, but anyway, it's getting all the sensors in the right place, and that's important. Yeah.
No, I think that's really interesting, and I love that because I was forced to sit down and watch the YouTube videos about gut health, and the whole gut feeling, that phrase actually has some sort of scientific meaning, is that your gut actually does talk to your brain and vice versa. So when people talk about their gut feeling, that there's almost a little bit of kind of science behind that, which I thought was really interesting.
So I really annoy people in my business pool, like especially my FD and a lot of technical people, because I'm not very technical. You know, I'm dyslexic. You know, academia is not my thing. But I built the business, from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I've built my business on gut feeling, right? So I might look at a spreadsheet and I'll just go, no, that's wrong. And they'll go, no, what are you talking about? And I go, no, that's the wrong figure. Well, why? I don't know. It's just the wrong figure. It should be X. And they'll, no, you're wrong, Jeremy. And they'll go away and they go, oh, you sod. How did you know that? And it isn't the maths thing. It's a gut feel. Yeah. I love it. I definitely am a believer of gut feel.
So if you come back to, this bit about how we're communicating and the psychological nuances that are starting to arrive. I mean, who would have predicted this? We're both somewhere on this journey as people in independent companies becoming media gurus, right?
Yeah. I design and build websites. I mean, this is all.
I settle claims.
Did you have this on your sort of like investment strategy this time last year?
What, to have like 20 cameras?
No, you didn't.
No.
And,
no.
Yeah, you're good. But let me tell you out. So what I was really trying to say with this gut piece is, and you've just expressed it in a really cool way. You're enjoying it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the trading dynamics of life capitalism, as we shift away from this old economy, this old world, which is actually gone, we just need to be aware of that, is that we're looking for fulfillment now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we look for more fulfilling sort of experiences, and this is one of them. And I do enjoy this. I enjoy conversations with people, open-hearted, open-minded. And an open will, so you're kind of just open and having conversations and sharing experiences and,
absolutely,
and collaborating,
Yeah, no, and it's like a little bit of the unknown, isn't it? Is that, you don't know what various different collaborations or various different, giving your time to something, you don't know what might come of that, something commercially or a new relationship or, and I think, it is interesting, and I do think you're right. We are sort of transitioning away from a slightly different type of economy, and people are valuing those kinds of things.
I do, and I completely empathise with that. So I think the future is, like I say, I coined the phrase life capitalism, and because that's the essence of my business, Zen Agility, Zen, calm, agility, environment, calm environment. And it is all about that deep soul-searching stuff that you want to manifest in the world, and this is all part of it. I was talking to somebody about ambition, a word called ambition. I think it's going to be history soon, because I think we have to have more aspiration, but equally ambition might be something that's quite stressful. So I think even our dialogue's going to change, the language we use,
right.
And
we see that in business, right? I mean, I can't remember the last time I referred to the guys that work for me are people in the business as my staff, and we have a director of people and culture now, not someone who heads up HR. So it's about the terminology, I think, and that sounds maybe a insignificant thing, but it's how we see our people, right? It's how it is the language affects people.
It does. It's I like to think that when I write or communicate anything, and I'm not a brilliant writer, but I have a coinage, and I like to use energy as my coinage and aspirational speak. And I'm a 4 o'clock in the morning guy. I get up at 4. I do a 2-hour sort of like coffee session and
Crikey.
just writing things down. And
Hey, we could swap messages then.
Sorry?
Don't message me.
Oh, we could swap messages. I'm up not sure afterwards, but
So Paul, you are one of these because let's spend like a couple minutes on that, right? I consume a lot of information about productivity, about lifestyle, and some of it I know I'm not quite able to put into practice yet. I'm just not there yet. And I think one of them is consuming a lot of information about top CEOs or top performing entrepreneurs and about their morning routines, right? So the 5 a.m., the 5 a.m. CEO, and there's a lot of people that talk about this. And so that's something you do. And have you got any tips or any kind of like guru guidance on how to achieve that and what the outcomes are, what the benefits are?
I think that many years ago, I was very privileged to research a guy called Edward Bernays, who was the father of propaganda, or the godfather of propaganda many years ago. That was it was all about herding sheep with sharks. And there was a concept.
I love that.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting great strap lines.
I mean, I'll not go down that rabbit hole, but the long and short of it, we are seeing things like that happening right now. But anyway, my point was, I gave up on things like status. So, I enjoy nice things, but I'm not here to be approved of by others.
Right.
So right now, we're in a sort of state of digital gluttony. There's a lot of like social media out there.
Yeah.
So my phrase is social sense, talk sense, right? But coming back to your point about rituals and routines, which I have, is I carve out what feels right for me. So there's a gut thing kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
So getting up and spending time writing is now being substituted by recording. So I have a relationship with my brand manager. I will talk to her on all sorts of guff on a recorded message. She picks it up at 7 when she gets up. She knows where I'm at. And we're kind of working in a more synchronized fashion. So that's cool. I'm very lucky to live on the coast. So I swim in the sea.
Nice.
I go to the beach.
Wow.
But by 9 o'clock, I've achieved probably half a day of everything. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm in a good place. And then I go into my calls. I'm not doing meetings face-to-face anymore as much, maybe once a week, if that. But it comes back to rituals and routines. And, another thing that I'm a big fan of is, stoic values. And I kind of manage my expectations on things constantly. And like I said, the only form of unhappiness is unfulfilled expectations. So why set too many high expectations? Yeah. But I think the essence of it, Shane, is be original. That's my message. I go at the gym, I've got a T-shirt that says be original, and I don't think we're original enough. We kind of conform a lot.
Yeah.
But now I see that studio you've got, it's definitely original.
It's definitely something. There's a lot of cables.
But, be original, do what's right for you.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And it's a bit like, it's a bit like businesses. I worked with a lot of distressed companies. And in reality, it's distressed because, they're just doing too much and they're growing numbers and looking for results that nobody wants at the end of the day. So why burn the team out, right? Mm. Have a happy environment, get good, considered, profitable growth, and do the right things. But it comes back to how you administer yourself, how you show up, why you're doing what you're doing. And I think the other key point is to be able to pull this all together, you've got to have purpose. If you've got a good purpose, life's good.
So I am a subscriber of Silent Ego and thoroughly enjoy it. So that's also podcasts are great to listen to at 5 o'clock in the morning if you're going off training and doing stuff like that. One of the sessions I was listening to, it was really clear about your passion for people, right? And how the modern day business should be considering about their people and their leadership over their people and not really worry about the profit so much, the spreadsheet, care about their people. Now, I understand the concept, right? The concept is you invest in your people, you create happy people, they then treat your customers like they're part of their family, and they treat their customers, and therefore the customers has great service, which then in the end will result in good profits, right? In other words, focus on the people and the profits will just follow. So I get that and buy into the concept, but from a person who does get that, I know that there's a huge amount of investment in that, and there's a lot of upfront investment, and it's all intangible. There's nothing you can't really, it's not tangible, it's not, you can't say I'm investing X and Y in our people and I'm getting Z out. So, but it's a long-term investment. So the question I've got for you, you know, you're mixed up with getting VCs involved in businesses, and there's a whole side of that. Now, I have a very stereotypical view of a VC, which is they will just care about the profit first amongst anything else. And how do you, you know, how do you? I mean, do you find that with VCs? That you know, is there a different breed of VCs coming up that actually go, yeah?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. The answer to that question, there is. A lot more stateside, humanistic sort of value-based business VCs. The VCs for me fall into a number of categories, always have done. But I think a big proportion of them needing now to adapt the way that they do what they do. So you've got the rock stars at the top end of the funnel, the ones that I, in some respects don't tend to work with because there's not enough humanistic value in it. And it's not just about the numbers. It's all about people. And it's, having that sort of empathy and consideration for that is a prerequisite for me. So I won't deal with an absolute, spreadsheet driven, money driven character, because I don't think it just, it's against my personal views. Do you know what? I mean, I've dealt with a lot of VCs over the, particularly the last 10 years, or, corporate finance houses and things. There's a lot of really good ones out there as well. There's small niche, sort of more bespoke ones are a lot more friendly. But in some respects, they're very good with numbers. And sometimes I think it's a bit of a tall order. I know it's a sort of almost like a conditioned answer to this, but understanding the people is just not their thing, a lot of them. But there are the odd few. But I think if you are, any listeners today are thinking about raising capital, or, even selling your company, it's that relationship. It's about, working with your gut and assessing the individual. And I visited a company actually lately called Benchmark International. And, they're a big mainstream sort of M&A company.
I know who they are, yeah.
Yeah, they've got a nice friendly approach, right? And, I was quite impressed with, I wouldn't say they were like right up there as rock stars, but they were like humans and kind of got it. And I suppose in some respects, if they're really squeezed, they would probably see themselves as a poor relation to that market. But I wouldn't, make any further comment. But coming back to, the business essence that we've been talking about today generally, and you talk about customers and you talk about buyers and sellers and VCs, where we're going now, I believe that the philosophy, the psychologies that we're actually going to be rolling out over the next 5 to 10 years as we go through this step change of where we used to live to where we're going to live, how we're going to live, hopefully. Customers are now friends, right? The perfect customer becomes a friend. Yeah. So if I give any guidance to any sales-driven business, it's not about the money, it's how many retentive friends you've got, right? And it's about acquiring good friendships with your customers. And that's a skilled event, right? That's not being smarmy, that's not bribing, that's not anything like other than human to human dynamics. It's relationships. Yeah. And that's what it's about. And they, and then the whole sales process, or it just evaporates because there's trust, it's mutual, and we do business and we're friends. And I think they all say don't mix business with pleasure. But you know what? I think we're living in times now where befriending your customer is a wise thing. And we all have the skills and ability to do it. We always had it, but we've over-processed everything and mechanized things. And in some respects, it's actually driven us apart. And we've become more, we've put too much anxiety in the system. And it's, for me, I think it's got to be, you need to develop through it. And that's what I'm talking about. And right now with egostream.com, I'm championing the changing nature of sales as an example. There's a big campaign coming out from our end in the next week or so about the psychology of doing business through the glass room and befriending your client. Yeah. And that's mega important.
So, Paul, thank you ever so much. I do agree with you. I think that there's some really interesting points that's been pulled out of today's talk. And I love the fact that it's just been back and forth, really informal. But actually, when you go through that, there's some really interesting nuggets of information, and also some nice little key phrases as well that I think I'll be putting in my back pocket. So, Paul, to wrap things up, if people wanted to know a little bit more about your podcast or a little bit more about your business, it's also around Zengelity as well. That does sound like a really interesting thing that could be beneficial to a lot of people. Yeah. How do they get in touch? How do they reach out?
Yeah, reach out to zengelity.life or egostream.com, or please distribute my email address. I'm more than happy to sort of have informal conversations. Paul.Stephenson, that's with a PH, at egostream.com. So more than happy. But zengelity.life is really on point and on purpose at the minute with helping people that have been made redundant. So just to sort of like emphasize that about the world of work is changing. And maybe if we come back in a few weeks' time, we can talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, love to.
It would be a great subject matter. But for you guys, I think it's been a lovely experience. I've enjoyed it today.
Wonderful.
And for the listeners that you have today, be remarkable, be unforgettable, and be original.
I love it.
Good old Paul. That was really, really good. I think I really enjoyed that conversation.
I'm really buzzed up.
Yeah, there's so much stuff, and he's got such a wealth of experience in what he does. So I'm hoping that people will get something from that, and hopefully like learn a little bit about, one of the things that he's clearly, passionate about is the fact that I think it sounds like he started his career in a lot of, acquisitions and mergers and things like that. The
cut and thrust of the city.
Yeah. But now appreciating that lifestyle is now thrown into the mix.
Yeah.
And the value that brings.
And not just the value it brings to himself, but actually the fact that the respect we have to have to other human beings, the people that work for us, our customers.
It's really important.
And I love what he says about being authentic.
And it's everything right now, right? And it doesn't really get more authentic than this. There is literally 4 cameras pointing at us, one for every angle. So
for me, that podcast is a 5 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, because I'm buzzed up now. I don't want on my weekend. I want to go back to work now. I feel really pumped. Really inspired. That's definitely a Monday morning job.
Yeah, no, and it'd be good to check out his podcast. I've not actually listened to it yet, but I'm definitely going to plan it.
4 o'clock though. Right? I mean, I do 4 o'clock. I do 5:30, and I think that's early.
I do 6:30 when it's gym day, and then 7:30 when it's not gym day, and that's bad enough. Yeah. Maybe I could work on that. So I hope everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you've found some value in what Paul had to say today, and as always, please like and subscribe. It really helps out our little YouTube channel that we've just started growing, and be notified for when we do the next one, which will be in a couple of weeks' time. I want to say a massive thank you to Glenn from Highwayman Productions for helping us today. He's behind the scenes. We'll have to get a camera on him at some point.
Well, we need it'd be great to have a camera on this side. So
so we can point at all the gear. We'll do that. We've got the GoPro actually. I'll set the GoPro up next time, and we can have that so we can share our little studio setup.
Or is Glenn a typical? I want to be behind the camera instead of in front of a camera.
I don't know. He'll have to get a new set of headphones though, because they're currently off-brand. They're bright white. So we can't have those. It needs to match. So we'll work on that, and then we'll get him on camera. But thank you ever so much. We couldn't have done it today without you, buddy. And thank you to Mel as well, who also helps with the audio and the podcast side of the production. So, sounds all good. It's always a team effort.
Fantastic, yeah.
Which is what Digital Taunton's all about, essentially. So
this has been great fun.
No, really good fun. Yeah. Cool. Well, see you again next time, everybody.
Thank
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.